how I went into my next relationship. And now I've been with my husband, my second husband, for 12 years. And it's a really different relationship because I am different, and I attracted someone different, and how I have my business is different. So it definitely was not an overnight success, but it is definitely a journey.
100, definitely. Did you say that your ex-husband is the one that introduced you to the course?
No.
Who introduced you to the course?
A friend of mine,
Or the program?
yeah, a friend of mine that I had known for a few years, and he just called me one day and said, "Hey, what do you think? Are you ready to come into the course now?" And I was like, "Yes, I am. Sign me up." But he had been calling me, poor guy, had been trying to get me in this class for 6 years. I had every single reason not to do it. And I did end up working for that company several years later, after I'd done a lot of the different, workshops. I fell in love with it, had major success, and turned my life around completely financially. And of course, met the new love of my life, my now current husband. So it was a major game changer.
Wow. Yeah, the first program I took was Landmark,
Mm-hmm.
the Landmark Forum.
Yep.
And the reason I asked about the X is because my son's father is the one that introduced me to it. We weren't together. Like,
yeah.
He's just
And I'm still friends with my ex-husband, and we had, I call, like, the friendliest divorce in California. I mean, we're very lucky. And he's a great parent, and I consider him, us still having a friendship, but we had our different paths. And so even though it was one of the hardest times in my life, I'm certainly grateful for the experience and the lessons that I needed to learn to become more of who I truly am.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you talk more on you recognizing and stepping into what you needed to take on as your responsibility with the things that were going on? Because I think that that's one of an issue, especially when you're first jumping into personal development, that you get hit with that and you're kind of like, yeah, no, that's not a thing. And a lot of people steer away from it at that point. And that's pretty far up in the beginning of it, is you have to like take blame for all the things, even if it makes no sense. So can you tell us a little more about your journey with that?
Oh my gosh, it's such a deep dive, that whole subject, because there's so many layers that I have stepped through to be willing to do that, and to see it, and to even hear my own victim type thinking, to see when I'm in it, to step away and go, okay, I know I am so attached to this other person being wrong. I'm so attached to it being someone else's fault. And I really want to blame them, and it's them who should change. Like, that's the kind of languaging of, you're like, we're circling. We know we're getting close to
Yes.
And to me, it is one of the most courageous qualities a person can have, is to go, yeah, I see that my mind is saying that. I can even feel the feelings. I can see how I'd be so drawn to it being someone else's fault, or they need to change. And to almost like separate myself, or separate yourself from that thought, that feeling. Like, yes, it's me. And there's this other part of me that says, wow, my mind is really crafty. Holy smokes. Okay. What else is possible? What else is true? How can I bring my higher conscious self? How can I bring my ideal thinking, this other being, my spiritual being, to this scenario? And not, I don't want to say like be synthetic about it, like fake it, but go like truly. Because you don't want to like necessarily allow other people to, treat you like crap. That's not what I'm saying. And it is a fine line there where we can get a little, I say, I'll say, don't use your knowledge of self, awareness of self, against yourself,
Ooh, yes.
Yeah. So sometimes we can get into those kind of traps. So for me, I would just say it was a journey. It wasn't an overnight thing. But it's something I really respect, and I like being around other people like that. In our circle, we'll call it FIGs, like friends in growth, you know,
Aw.
like someone who can keep you accountable and accept you for who you are, and you can work through those pieces, those things, those faults, those, you know, and be forgiven and move forward with grace. Like that's a powerful relationship to be in.
Yes, definitely. Um, Not being enough.
Ah, I know a lot about that.
How do you function? How have you gotten to how are you sitting here today right now trying to tell us that you sometimes have thoughts and have dealt with this in the past not being enough, but then also have spoken in front of 600 audiences? How are you doing that?
Well, like anything, right? The beliefs that we have, when we call it limiting beliefs, aren't always limiting. There's benefits and consequences to a lot of the beliefs that we have. So it got to the point where like, okay, let me recognize the goodness in that not enoughness feeling. Because if I just completely felt satisfied all the time and never needed more, well, then I probably wouldn't have 600 speaking engagements, right?